You know that feeling when you're lying in bed at night and suddenly you think, oh, wait, did I turn in that assignment? Did I even see that in Brightspace? And then you grab your phone and you start frantically tapping through the course and you're trying to figure out what you missed. Yeah, we've all been there. Late on a Sunday night, and it's dark, and the whole world is asleep. It's that panic. Did I do everything? It's very real. And when every course is organized just a tad bit differently, it's easy to feel like you're playing hide and seek with your homework. I'm Loy from Online Learning, and today on Study With Me, we're talking about how to find all your coursework in Brightspace so you could actually sleep at night. Joining me today is Sarah Wessel. She's one of our instructional designers here at GCC, so that means she works with faculty to build courses, and she knows Brightspace inside and out. Sarah, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Loy. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. So I've been here at GCC as an instructional designer for not quite 3 years yet, so I'm still getting to know GCC and loving it. I have been a teacher since roughly 2012, and I've taught all levels from grade 7 to higher education.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time out to be with us. So let's start off with the whole thing about courses looking different. Okay. And we hear this from students all the time. They're like, oh, I opened my math course and everything's in weeks, and my history course is all organized by topics, and I don't know where anything is. So what's going on there? Like, why doesn't every course just look the same?
Well, thanks for asking. And that's very true. So I probably lay my eyes on 80%, if not 100% of the courses we have in Brightspace. And I teach several of them. And the fact is, Brightspace as a shell is where we house all of our courses. And it's set up the same, in essence. So you've got your home page where you've got your announcements from your instructor, and then below that, your visual table of contents of what's embedded in the content area. And then on the right-hand side, you have things like your calendar and your work to do widget and things like that. Then when you go into the content area, on the left-hand side is what we call them modules, but think of them as like chapters in a book. Okay. So some faculty will choose to title their chapters or modules by week because everything is very chronological or in a organized order. For instance, history. Makes a lot of sense to just plan out that timeline. There's also content that serves better with larger chunks or bigger modules. And that might be something like a couple of units in a course. For instance, I teach English and I teach public speaking. And in public speaking, I break my modules or my course up into roughly 6 or 7 modules for 6 formal speeches. So therefore, that's how that's organized. And material can cross between those modules at times.
Right, I was going to ask that. So the tools are all the same, but the instructor, essentially, I guess what you're saying is the instructor is organizing it according to what they want to do or according to what they're teaching.
Well, so all the instructors have a plan. There's a plan in place of how to get the students to achieve all the skills or the knowledge that we're expecting of them. So just like you and I are different, we see things differently, we plan things differently, and it makes good sense to us. That doesn't always mean it's going to make sense to every student in our class. So that's where the difficulty, I think, comes in at times.
Right, because some students, they really want it organized by week, and sometimes it just makes sense to kind of build. I see what you're saying about a speech. If you're taking 3 weeks to prepare for a speech, it doesn't make sense to break that into 3 segments.
Correct.
Right, okay, so that makes sense. Yeah, I actually have a course that I teach where the students have two projects that they're working on in parallel. So they're running at the same time. And yeah, that's a tricky one to try and figure out how to get it organized.
Yes, absolutely.
But everybody's got a system. Okay, so we talked a little bit about why the courses look different, and that may make sense to students now. So let's talk about, as a student, you want to know that you've completed all your work. You want to know you haven't missed anything, and you know that different courses might look different. So let's say I'm a student, it's Sunday night, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I need to make absolutely sure I haven't missed anything this week. Where do I start?
Not on Sunday night, hopefully. No, truly, I know we have our midnight workers for sure. So if I can backtrack just a little bit, though, when you begin a course, the syllabus, the course schedule, and any information provided right in the beginning, put it down somewhere, print the documents, use your phone, do something to get any due dates that are visible into a calendar of some sort, if you can. Okay? So let's say it's Sunday night, it's midnight, right? And something's probably due on Monday. So what we can do as a quick check is go to your homepage and look at the calendar. Okay? On the right-hand side, you'll see a calendar with any due dates that are recorded in Brightspace. Now there are some tools that don't record the way we expect them to. So start there and look at your work to do widget. That will give you some indication of what you've done, what's coming up, and what might be coming up immediately in the next 3 minutes. Then a good plan is to just make sure if you're working in, let's say, Module 1, whether it's titled week, unit, chapter, it doesn't matter. Take a breeze through it. Check for a checklist. Check for anything that says assignment, discussion board, quiz, anything that is tagged in that way for a quick check, check those. They may have start dates, due dates, end dates, all sorts of dates. And if you're on a Sunday night, that's going to be your go-to place for making sure that you've hit on those items. But go back to your course syllabus. Go back to your calendar. You wrote all those down in day one, remember?
We did. Yeah, sure we did. Yes, I did that. No, so if I'm hearing this right, so the calendar and the work to do widget and the grade book are kind of like, here's the whole semester. Here's like everything coming up, right?
Essentially. Okay, it's not always going to have everything available from day one. Some instructors want to not overburden the students by showing them the 40 things they have to accomplish in the semester, right? So you may not see everything. But yes, the things that are current and due, or almost due, those should be visible in either the calendar, the work to do widget, find it in the grade book, and the tools.
Okay. And then if you go into the module, that's kind of a like what we're doing right now look. Yeah, generally speaking. So as long as you're keeping current, very important. If you're keeping current and you're in the correct module, that's your chapter. That's your course chapter, right? That's where you live. That's where all your reading materials and anything you're responsible for knowing, and then any of your activities or assessments, that should all be housed there as well. However, everybody's different. Right.
So if you don't see any discussion boards, quizzes, or assignments in your module, don't assume you have nothing due. So if you go up to the top of your course in Brightspace and you click on the activities tab in the blue ribbon, you will see quizzes, assignments, discussion boards, and possibly one or two other tools. A quick glance at each of those will tell you if something is due.
Okay. I didn't mention that because I've talked to some students who are let's just say, really anxious to make sure, they want to make sure they have everything done. And one of the tools that they came back to me with was, well, I always use the assignments. I go in the activities tab in the nav bar, that blue nav bar up there, and I click down on that and I look in assignments, and then, even if it's not in the module, I know it's going to be there because they're all there. Is that correct?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is a great thing to check and a great tool to take advantage of. There will always be that possibility that there is a third-party textbook with an activity that is not going to be found in the nav bar, as you say. I call it the blue ribbon.
Okay.
So you still might have to go through the module to make sure you're hitting on all of those things and nothing's hidden or a mystery to you.
Right. Yeah, well, so if you have an e-textbook, like a Pearson or Cengage or Norton or one of those, so they're what you're saying is there might be activities out there in the e-textbook that are not listed in Brightspace.
Correct.
Okay. But that's if you have that textbook.
Correct. Yes, it may be challenging because it may not show up in your grade book. In Brightspace, it may not show up in the content module. It just depends, again, how the instructor has decided the best way to organize that course material.
Right. And we talked last week with Judy Littlejohn about that some instructors have the option of embedding the course directly in Brightspace, even by chapter, so chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7. And then some e-textbook publishers don't offer that option. They offer just, here's a link to the whole course. Have at it. And so they don't always have that choice.
Absolutely.
Right. That is why it's difficult. It's like your car, when you go to put gas in your car, and some of them the gas cap is on the driver's side, and some of them the gas cap is on the passenger side.
And some need a button, and some need a push, and some need to twist and bop and spin it. Anyway.
Every time I would pull up to a gas station, I'm always like, why don't the manufacturers just standardize, put them all on the driver's side, and then we're all driving on the right side of the gas pump and not nose to nose at each other? But yes, okay.
Yeah.
It's the same way with our e-textbooks. So much fun. Okay. So I did want to talk about one other item in Brightspace, and some instructors, I guess, I know I don't use them, but some instructors use checklists. Do you use checklists?
I do.
So can you tell us a little bit about those?
Absolutely. So a checklist, what I do is in each of my modules, I'll have a checklist. And in it's a manual checklist. So I'll have all the assignments, all the readings, all the activities that the students need to accomplish. But it's a manual checklist. So when student A says, well, I read chapter 13 and spent 36 seconds in it, they can check that right off. Okay? So that just gives you a nice little tidy outline of what is expected of the student for that module. And oftentimes you'll find due dates and links and things like that within the checklist.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's not the same as sometimes sometimes when you're reading a page in Brightspace, there's a check mark that shows up on the right-hand side if you've opened it and read it, and that's a different thing.
That is a different thing. You are correct. So that happens automatically, and the other is manual.
Okay. So yeah, if you see something called a checklist, it's probably a manual checklist. And
yes, and so the thing that can happen there, and we talked about it, if I'm a instructor who does not put their discussion boards in the content, but I link it in the checklist, you're going to want to make sure you check in that.
So I guess if an instructor has a checklist, you'd better go look at it.
Check it. You better check it.
It's there for a reason.
Imagine.
Yeah, no, we don't write all this stuff. Instructors don't write all this stuff just for fun. It's there for a reason, right?
Yeah, we do the best we can, but you know what? Sometimes students have to ask questions. And I'd really love for more students to ask more questions when it comes to any confusion.
Well, I think you're bringing us into our next section, and we want to talk a little bit about, so we talked about 6 or 7 different places we can look for coursework and just double check that everything's done. So what is the usual reason? Like, if a student's missing an assignment, what do you think is the usual typical thing that they're doing that they miss it?
Sadly, it's usually because they're not reading carefully, they're not paying real good attention to the details, and it could be panic mode. It could be they're just rushing through to see, what do I have to get done? And then they miss it. That's a real possibility. It's also the procrastination thing. You know, we all do it. We all wait till last minute with some aspect of our lives. For me, it's packing. Okay, I always wait till the last second, so I'm guaranteed to forget my toothbrush. Well, you know, procrastination is a big deal. My brain just blanked out there, so
It's okay.
It'll come back to me.
Don't procrastinate on your coursework, because
Yes.
then you might miss something. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So, like, it's not that the work isn't there in Brightspace, and it's not like the references aren't there for them to find it. They're just going too quick, and they're missing it. So, what kind of things should they do differently?
Well, when you get an assignment, if it's in person, great, write on it. Okay, write on your assignment. If you can print it, great, write on it. And if you can't, there are annotation tools online that are free that you can mark up these assignments. But read them carefully, slow down. What is it that you are going to be graded on? That's what it comes right down to. You can feel very competent and successful in the content, but if you're not passing those assessments and you're not meeting what your instructor expects, you're going to struggle. So slow down, pay close attention, jot down notes, go back to the rubric, check it again before you submit.
Right.
And if you can, get a buddy. Get a buddy in your class. Share contact information, or go into if there's a discussion board for students to kind of ask questions and talk to each other, get in there. They can't see you, even if you're shy. It's okay. It's just your name. You know, it definitely helps when students buddy up. So.
Yeah, I was teaching a class a while back, and students were not asking questions, but they were doing the work correctly and doing well. And it turns out they had a whole WhatsApp for my class.
That's amazing.
All the students were in it, and they
That's
were just all
awesome.
messaging each other in between classes and asking questions and getting answers. And I thought, okay,
That's fantastic. I love that.
more power to you guys.
Right.
You did it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
you found a solution and it works. Awesome. But, I mean, it kind of sounds like it's what students should do is the opposite of what they think they should do. So they think they need to move really fast to get everything done. Get it done, get it done, get it done. But then they start missing things. And so students who are worried about their missing things, the best thing they should do is slow down.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good idea to just allow your brain to even read what you're reading, right? Like, we can read the words on the page, but if we're not slowing down, we don't know what it's saying. We're not going to retain it.
Right.
We're just people, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Got
Slow
all this
down.
Tapioca pudding in the skull here.
Yeah. Yes. And take notes. To be a little old-fashioned, or do it on your computer. Take notes. I know in Module 1 I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z. I don't know what Z is. Maybe I should ask a question before it's due.
Yeah. Planning ahead always is and planning ahead is so important for any college class, but so much more important when it's an online class, because your instructor might take 24 hours or 48 hours to get back to you. And if the due date is passed by that time, you might be panicking.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like you have to take those due dates and push them back 24 or 48 hours in your head and say, this is when I have to have it done by, because that way if you have questions, there's still room.
Yes. So, for online courses, I always recommend to my students who struggle with time management is to find a chunk of time in your week that you can devote that online course to as though you are attending class. So that way, on Wednesdays at 3:15, you're going to be working on online class, enter here, for the next 2.5 hours.
Right.
Yeah, so that way you've got things planned out and you're not going to overstress yourself.
Right. And I'm just going to throw in a mention here. If you're new to the podcast and you're just coming in this semester, I want you to roll back to episode 2. Episode 2 is where we walk you step by step through the weekly time management plan.
Nice.
And it's literally that. It's sitting down with a weekly calendar and figuring out when you're going to do your coursework and when you have to work and when you have to eat and when you have to sleep and when you have to, watch your kids or pick them up from school or do any of the other million things that you have going on in your life, and how you're going to fit your study time in there for an online asynchronous course. So that's episode 2. Go right back to that. The weekly study plan. We do that. We can check the calendar. We can check the work to do widget. We can check the grade book. We talked a lot about the activities tab, reading through the actual modules. Oh, and I haven't mentioned the syllabus, right?
Oh, yes. Right from day one, you got to read that syllabus. That's our contract, right? So, yeah, I mean, as faculty, we just love writing documents that no one reads. I mean, we have nothing better to do, and we just truly do enjoy that around a cup of coffee on a Sunday morning. But no, actually, chock full of important information. And a lot of it looks boilerplate or copy and paste from one course to another. But the fact is, there's such vital information in those syllabi, and if you don't understand something, don't sign the contract. Ask the questions. Right. Get the answers.
I think sometimes students think of a syllabus as something that they read at the beginning of the semester and they never read it again. Yeah. And it seems like it makes more sense for them to think of a syllabus like a dictionary. Like, okay, oh, wait, this word. I don't remember what that is. I better go look it up. And in the same thing in the syllabus, my instructor is talking about this thing called an entry ticket, just to use as an example, is a term that instructors will use. I don't remember what that is. Let me go back to the syllabus because it's probably defined.
And that's a quicker answer than emailing the instructor and waiting 36 hours for a response when you could have just read that 6-page Word document.
6 pages. I think mine is, 12, but hey, who's counting?
It's not a bragging point.
It is not. It is not. All right. So we're coming down to the last segment here. And in the last segment, I like to give our experts the opportunity to say, if you could give one tip to students, if you want them to remember one thing from listening to this podcast, what would that thing be?
Well, I don't know that I've necessarily mentioned it explicitly yet, but get to know your instructor. They're people.
That's true.
Okay? And they're the content experts that you are supposed to be learning from. If you build a relationship right away by dropping an email and saying, "Hi, I want to introduce myself. I'm student A, and I'm in this class." That goes a long way because, I'm going to remember student A when that discussion board comes around and be like, oh, yeah, they reached out to me. And it makes you feel like you know the instructor better, and the instructor knowing you by name better is so much easier when there's trouble. Right. Because when those deadlines come up and those difficulties and those questions, you're going to be much more comfortable to talk to someone you already know.
Right. It's not the same. Asking somebody you already know is not the same as asking somebody you've never met.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's very difficult for students to go to an online instructor's office because generally they're in their homes and you're probably not invited. But if you're on campus, that's much easier. So online, yes, it's even more important to get to know your instructor and let them know you.
Right. It's almost like, and I think there's this thought process of, if I'm sitting here texting, okay, I'm texting somebody through my phone, through a messenger app, through WhatsApp, through Facebook Messenger, through just SMS texting, and I'm texting, and I'm really not thinking about the fact that I'm texting. I'm thinking about the person on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And yet somehow when we go into Brightspace and students start reading, and it becomes all about the content or the mechanism that's right in front of you, and they tend to forget that there's a human being on the other end of that connection. No different than if you're emailing, your aunt.
Mm-hmm.
There's a person on the other end of that email, a real human being.
And I'd like to say instructors like their students and they want to know them. That's teachers become teachers because they like helping and educating.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing better than knowing your student. So reach out, drop a line.
Mm-hmm.
If they give you their phone number, you can shoot them a text,
Mm-hmm.
instant message, but check the syllabus and see how they prefer to be contacted.
Right. Because just like real people, some instructors prefer a text message, and some prefer a phone call, and some prefer, like a WhatsApp or a communication, and some prefer an email. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So that's great advice for our students out there. And it's funny that the number one tip for staying on top of coursework would not be, something specifically in Brightspace. It'd just be a human.
Yes, please.
Be a human being.
Absolutely.
All right. So, some great advice today. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate you taking your time out.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And for our students, if you ever have a question about what's due or where to find something in your course, check your syllabus, check your course schedule. That's your roadmap. Check all of the areas in Brightspace, so your calendar, your to-do list, and then those activities tabs under the blue ribbon nav bar. They'll call it all of the things, the blue ribbon nav bar. But check all of those things and then reach out to the instructor, and don't hesitate to reach out to the instructor, because the instructors at GCC in particular, we are a teaching college. We want you to succeed.
Yes.
Everyone here is here to make sure that you have all of the tools that you can possibly have in your toolkit to make sure you succeed. And now I get to introduce you, Sarah, to our mantra here at the podcast. Our mantra is progress, not perfection.
Love it.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.